After spending a couple of hours in the pub, I drove across the Cooper to my campsite. Well, I'm at the Cooper now. At this camp spot, I had to cross the Cooper on the causeway. Everybody else seems to be camped on the other side, and I can now see why. It's a lot greener on the other side than what it is on this side. I don't know if they're having much luck with their meals over there, because I've got to share my first meal I've had for about 3 days, or first decent meal, shall I say, with thousands of flies. I've never seen so many flies in this area for ages. I'll be throwing my swag down the bottom, down the lower part next to the river tonight, and I'm just waiting until it gets dark, because it was a long trip up here. I think I left Inaminka, sorry, don't even know where I am again. I think I left Tibooburra about 9 o'clock, and I got up here just on 4 o'clock. It wasn't too bad, most of it, but the first part of the Svetlaki track had me worried for quite some time because of the deep sand and everything. The rocks were okay, there wasn't too much to worry about as far as the rocks were concerned, but as far as the deep sand was concerned, it had me quite concerned. But the Subaru handled it with no problems, and I must admit at that particular point I didn't really know what the Subaru could handle, but now I know. Well, I know to the extent that I didn't get bogged anywhere. I'm going to get back to eat this thing before the blooming flies finish it off for me. King's tree. This blaze was cut on a tree which grew near this spot to mark the general location of which John King, a member of the ill-fated Bourke Wills expedition, was found living with Aborigines in 1861. The blaze was cut in about 1947. For many years, it was the only marker to this historic site. June 28th, 1861. That was the date that this tree was the last resting place for Burke. It was an expedition that had tragic consequences. King was able to survive. Wills, even further down the creek, perished. It must have been a terrible way to die, after travelling all the way from the Cooper Creek right up to the Gulf and then returning, only to find that the camp was deserted. This area holds particular interest to me. I've followed the Burke Wills expedition quite a bit, but to actually be at the tree where he leant against when he died, revolver in hand, is quite an experience for me. It's tragic because just on the other side of this ridge here, there's abundance of wildlife. Pelicans, there's tons of fish in there. Just even now, even 100 odd years later, people are still bringing a good catch out of the Cooper. So it's amazing that they should die after doing such an epic journey. The next morning I left my campsite on the banks of the Cooper and headed east towards the Dig Tree. Well, this is the Cooper Creek. On the other side, about 2 kilometres down, is a dig tree. Can't get a car across here, so they tell me, but you can walk it. That's exactly what I'm doing now. Well, getting to the dig tree has really made my trip. This is the highlight of my trip, actually finding a tree. A tree with a lot of history. When Bourke, Wills, King and Grace set off for the Gulf of Carpentaria, they left the rest of the party in this area. Only 3 would return. The waiting party had broke camp just 12 hours before the exhausted explorers arrived back at camp, only to find a message cut in the tree to dig up supplies the waiting men had buried.